and writers, actors and television personalities who regularly appeared in the glossy Sunday supplements. Marcus Fairchild had been a truly evil man, but he'd had a lot of friends. Several times during the service, Nightingale had noticed a group of men in the front pews turning around to look in his direction. There were half a dozen of them, big men in black suits with greying hair and hard eyes. They were sitting together but barely spoke to each other and didn't appear to be singing or praying. Jenny was sitting on the right-hand side of the church, in between her mother and father. Nightingale didn't know if Fairchild had any family. As far as he knew, he wasn't married and didn't have children. It looked as if Jenny was the only mourner still in her 20s. The majority seemed to be aged 50 and older. Grey hair, parchment skin and watery eyes were the norm. Once the ceremony was over, the 6 men who had been sitting close to the front acted as pallbearers and carried the coffin outside. As they walked by, 2 of them turned to stare blankly at Nightingale. The mourners filed after the coffin, starting from the front pews and working backwards. By the time it was Nightingale's turn to join the procession, the coffin was at the graveside, and the vicar was preparing to speak again, the wind ruffling the pages of the Bible in his hands. Nightingale stood at the entrance to the church and watched as the pallbearers used thick green ropes to gently lower the coffin into the ground. Jenny was standing to the right of the vicar. She'd obtained a yellow flower from somewhere and was holding it to her chest. Standing behind her was her father, James, a big man with an expensive tan and short curly hair. He had his arm around his wife, Jenny's mother. Melissa McLean was in her early 40s, a decade or so younger than her husband, and had the look of a former model, soft, glossy blonde hair and high cheekbones. Her eyes were red from crying, and she kept resting her head on her husband's shoulder. They were standing close to 2 other people that Nightingale recognised: Mark Allen, overweight with several chins and drooping eyelids, and his much younger and prettier wife, Sally. Also among the mourners, Nightingale saw Leslie Smith, a Channel 4 newsreader who had just had her first novel published, and Wendy Bushell, a 60-something woman with shoulder-length grey hair who worked for the billionaire George Soros. He had met them once, at a dinner with Jenny's parents. Marcus Fairchild had been at the same dinner. Standing some way behind them was a white, bearded man with red veins threaded through his bulbous nose. Lackey Kennedy was the gamekeeper on the estate owned by Jenny's parents. Kennedy was with a white-haired woman who was clutching a black handbag to her chest. Nightingale had never met her, but he assumed it was Kennedy's wife. The vicar was in full flow now. The wind helped carry his voice over to where Nightingale was standing, but the words were unintelligible. Jenny held the flower up to her lips and kissed it, softly. Nightingale knew she was going to toss it into the grave, and he had a sudden urge to run over to her, grab the flower, and tell her the truth about her godfather. That Marcus Fairchild had been a member of a satanic group that believed that sacrificing children was the way to amass power and money, and to guarantee a place at Satan's side in the fires of hell. She wouldn't believe him, of course. Who in their right mind would? Marcus Fairchild had been a family friend from before she was born, and his death had hit her hard. Her parents wouldn't believe him either. The only people who would believe Nightingale would be those mourners who were also in the Order of 9 Angles, and they were all sworn to secrecy. As Nightingale stood watching Jenny toss the flower into the grave, he was aware of 2 men moving up behind him. He turned to find them looming over him. One was close to 6.5 feet tall, the other only a couple of inches shorter. They both had close cropped hair and were wearing black raincoats. "Jack Nightingale," growled the taller of the 2 men in an Essex accent. "Who wants to know?" asked Nightingale, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Don't fuck around," said the man. "Are you Nightingale or not?" "Of course it's him," said his companion. His accent was Essex too, but smoother and more polished, as if he'd gone to a halfway decent university before